done.
Now we can finally play the game.
Hey guys, welcome back to another video. As you saw in that opening clip, Orion camo is mine. I finished all of the weapons, max leveled everything, unlocked every single camo in the game, which is really exciting. And I feel like I'm in a very good state to rank the weapons in Modern Warfare 2 multiplayer after the Season 1 Reloaded update. Lots of changes, lots of updates. I've used all of these weapons to complete their camos, and we're going to break them down like this: meta, competitive, average, below average, garbage, and then niche. Some explanation: the meta means the most effective tactics available. These weapons here, you're going to be really competitive in every single game. Average, they don't do anything good or bad, they're just right there in the middle. Below average, you're going to start noticing that these weapons destroy you. Garbage, you should just completely avoid them. And then niche, because there are lots of weapons that do a specific job, so they're going to fit right into there. So let's get straight into it with our first weapon. We're just going to go straight through this order. We're not going to worry about categories. And the first weapon I've got here is the Basilisk. The Basilisk, in my opinion, is competitive, especially when you're using Akimbo. The Akimbo Basilisks, they can one-tap. They're really, really strong. They're very fun to use. The Bryson 800. I think the Bryson 800 is probably one of the better shotguns. It's competitive as well. There's a lot of really good options for shotguns, but this is probably one of my favorite ones to use. The Bryson 890, it's just slightly less effective, I feel like, in my mind. So I'm going to pop this one in average. The Chimera, the brand new weapon that's just dropped in the most recent update, is definitely meta in my opinion. This thing feels really good. No recoil, extremely good up close. Lots of different options. And it's also got that added bonus of keeping you off the minimap. Combat Knife, it's our first niche weapon. This thing is extremely fun to use. It's really fun to fly around the map. Great movement speed. It's extremely effective too if you're an S&D player and you want to be able to sneak up or make those flank plays. Use the movement speed of the Combat Knife. So I'm going to put that in niche at the moment. The EBR I really do like quite a bit. I feel like that is probably a competitive weapon. It does one tap in the head, and if you are at range, you can really use this effectively. And I do quite like the fire rate as well. The Expedite, I also think this is probably a competitive shotgun. I really like it because it's got that much faster fire rate, and you can build it out that way as well with extra movement speed. I think it's really, really effective. The Fennec, for me, I feel like the Fennec is quite overrated. I'm going to put this in competitive as well. I feel like a lot of people might have this in meta, but the Fennec for me, it just chews through ammo. It's not really good until you get that 45 round mag. It does absolutely melt people, but you're often caught in a reload. The FSS Hurricane, I really like this weapon. I know a lot of people don't like it very much, but the hipfire on this is absolutely ridiculous. It's got really good movement speed. You don't have to worry about a magazine because it's already got that base 50. I really do like it. The FTAC Recon, a lot of these battle rifles, to me, they fall in average. This thing, it can one-shot in the head, but really close. It can't really find its place for me if it's a nice close-range option or a distance option. Just for me, it's an average weapon. The HCR, I really do like the HCR 56. It feels like it hits like a truck. It's got not a lot of recoil. It just feels really nice. This for me is a meta weapon for sure. It's probably one of the most effective long-range weapons in the multiplayer. The Joker, well, Joker is niche. But, man, this thing, if you did these challenges before shipment, I feel your pain. For me, this thing wasn't too bad, but I do feel like it's one of the worst launches, especially when shooting things out of the air. It's just, you may as well just use your gun. The Kastov 545, it just got a buff, but for me, this thing feels average. Doesn't do anything better than the other Kastov weapons, so that's why I'm going to put it there. The 74U, definitely meta. This thing is a monster up close. It's got excellent movement speed, really good hip fire, and it just deletes people up close. So that definitely is still a meta option even after the nerf. Speaking of fantastic cast-off weapons, the cast-off 762, it is really, really effective in Warzone, but it's also fantastic in multiplayer. This thing feels really nice, like the AMAX of old, like the AK-47. This is definitely a competitive weapon for me. The LAB 330, I think this sniper, this is a tough one because a lot of the snipers do feel the same. But I feel like this is probably a average sniper rifle. It's got nice ADS, but it's got a lot of flinch. I feel like some of the other snipers are a better option, and we'll get to that soon. The Lockman 556, this is also just an average weapon. It doesn't do anything amazing. It's got no recoil, but it's got lower damage. So there's probably other assault rifles that you want to go with. The Lockman 762, I think this is our first garbage weapon. I hated using this to unlock the other weapons. I also feel like this has got a weird amount of recoil when you try and use it in full auto, but it's also extremely slow firing when you use it in semi-auto, so it just does not do anything really effectively, so that's why it's going to go in that garbage tier. The Lockman sub, this is another one I feel like is competitive. It is borderline meta. I just feel like the magazine size is probably not that good, and when you do use the 50 drum, you are way too slow. It's got really good recoil, it's got nice iron sights, and it's definitely a competitive sub. The LMS is a below average option. A lot of the other marksman rifles just do a lot of things better. It does one shot in the head, but I feel like it's really inconsistent, so I'm going to stick that as our first below average weapon. The Lockwood 300, I feel like this is probably average. I feel like having the 2 shots, it does really limit you compared to the other shotguns, the Bryce and the Expedite, and even the 890. I feel like it does really limit you. It's got fantastic range, and it does feel really good. Speaking of the Lockwood and the marksman rifles, the Lockwood MK2, definitely competitive rifle. This thing is extremely fast firing. It's good close range, good medium range. You can get that one shot in the head. I really like it. The M13B, I think this is a below average weapon. It just feels like it takes forever to kill someone. It's really good at range though, because it doesn't have a lot of recoil and it seems to hold its damage range really well. I feel like this is much better in Warzone than it is in multiplayer. M16, garbage. It's still terrible even after the buff. I hated using this thing. It belongs in garbage, and I hope they just leave this. It's terrible. The M4 for me, it bounces between meta and competitive. I do think it is competitive. I feel like it just can be inconsistent with its damage sometimes. And even though there's a lot of different ways you can build this out, which is why I think it's competitive, you can use it close range, medium range, and long range. It's just really effective all around, but I don't think it falls in that meta category. The MCPR, this I also feel like is an average sniper rifle. I feel like the ADS speed is really slow, but the bullet velocity is really effective. I also hated doing the challenge here for the hipfire kills. That was an absolute pain in the ass. So for me, that's why it's going to fall in average. The Minibuck, another really competitive SMG. A lot of the SMGs in this game are competitive. This has fantastic magazine size and great movement speed. It's also a hipfire monster as well. It's very fun to use. The MX9, this one falls in average for me. The MX9, just because it's got a lower magazine size. I mean, I think it's 24 before you put the 32 round mag on. It just doesn't mean it's as competitive as some of the other options. Again, it's got really good movement speed and it just copped that buff, so it could definitely start to rise. The P890, this is meta for me. The P890 Akimbo, they 2-tap. They are ridiculously strong, and I know it just got nerfed, but it was nerfed for Warzone only, where it affects armored enemies, and you don't really come across that at all in multiplayer. These things are extremely, extremely good. The PDSW, the P90, I really like the PDSW, but it does feel like a bullet sponge sometimes, so I'm going to put this as average. Again, good magazine size, good movement speed, but I just feel like you spend a lot of time shooting people and they don't die, and it can be really frustrating, especially with some of the one-tap options that are up close, like the shotguns, the pistols, and things like that. The Peeler for me, I also hated the Peeler. I actually feel like I hated this more than the Joker. The ADS speed of this thing is unnecessarily slow. It feels like you get a lot of hit markers. I just don't understand the Peeler. And again, it's probably only redeeming quality is that it can take out air support really well. The RAL LMG, for me, this is competitive. This would fit in meta, but I just think it's too slow. The ADS speed is really slow. The movement speed is really slow, but this thing hits like a truck. I think it's a 2-bullet kill up close. If you headshot people, it can feel like 1 bullet. It is ridiculous. The Wrap H, I feel like this is a below average LMG. It's got really good fire rate, good movement speed and ADS. However, it doesn't hit hard enough in my opinion. Just doesn't feel that great. The Riot Shield, this thing is probably, I might put the Riot Shield, it's probably niche, but with the nerf, having to hit someone 3 times, I just feel for people that haven't done the challenge, because that is really rough. It's really rough. It's just, and it's also really slow now as well. The RPG, I think it's the best launcher all around, especially if you're going against infantry operators, because it just reloads really quick. It's got good damage range. It's also really good on just being able to whip it out and clear out an objective. So I think the RPG is definitely one of the best launcher options. The RPK, absolute meta. This thing is beastly. It feels really good. It's got amazing damage, very little recoil. You can set it out in a number of ways as well. The SAB, I feel like the SAB is slightly worse than the SPR. However, I feel like this is probably still a competitive option. Really good up close. You know, this thing feels like a pocket shotgun. It's pretty much exactly the same as the SPR. However, I feel like the SPR gets more one-shots, and that's why I'm going to put the SPR in meta. I think this thing is still amazing. A lot of people are running around with this thing, just destroying lobbies. The SPR is incredible. The SAB, very close. The Seiken MG38. I didn't love this weapon, to be honest. I feel like I'm a little torn. I feel like this, again, is below average. This LMG, it just doesn't compare to some of these other ones, like the RPK, like the HCR, and like the royale. I feel like they're all better options. This is just a slow, heavy weapon. Pretty average. Below average, I mean. The Signal 50. The Signal 50 is pretty good. It's got that rapid fire rate. I feel like this is a competitive sniper. It's very effective at what it does. It's got good bullet velocity, very consistent one-shots. The SO14, hated this thing. This is garbage. No matter what way you use it, how you're running it, it just, for me, it didn't do the job. The SPX-80, I think this is a competitive sniper as well. This feels like the most consistent bolt-action sniper to me. I really enjoy it. I feel like it's very similar to the SAB as well, so they've got those qualities. The STB-556, one of my favorite guns in the game. Really fantastic close range. It's got that good medium range, good movement speed. It sounds and reacts really well. Everything about it I really enjoy. The Strela P. The Strela I actually didn't mind too much. I'm going to say it's probably ahead of the Joker. Right behind the RPG. Once again, really fast firing, so you can get those shots out there quick and clear out an objective. The TAC 5.6, this is definitely one of the better options in terms of meta weapons. I feel like, once again, low recoil, good damage, good magazine size. It does everything that you want really well. The TAC M, a lot of people hate this gun. I don't really know why. I feel like every time I use the TAC M, I do really well. I feel like, though, it's definitely not competitive. It's more average. It does one-shot headshot. It's got really good bullet velocity and really effective damage range. So it's definitely viable. You can use it and do well. The TAC V, this thing is competitive. It's borderline meta in my opinion. It's probably just got too much recoil for the average user, but this thing destroys. The Vaznev 9K, this is my favorite gun in the game by far. This thing just feels incredible. The movement speed, the hip fire, the recoil, everything it does is really effective. It's probably my favorite overall weapon to use in the game. The Val 46, I loved it already before the buff. I think it's even better now. This is definitely a competitive SMG option. It's got good base magazine size as well, so you can definitely build it out to be a hip fire monster or a no recoil monster or a movement monster. There's a lot of things you can do with the Val 46. I really like it. The Victus XMR, I think this is an average sniper. I feel like if you're going to use a bolt action, the SPX or the Signal work kind of better in terms of everything that they do. The X12, I really like the X12. I think it's a really effective pistol. This is competitive. It's got amazing fire rate, good movement speed, and once again, akimbo, this thing shreds. And I feel like exactly the same can be said for the X13 Auto. I feel like this thing, it's really effective as well up close. You can build it out with those 50-round mags. Both of these pistols are fantastic. The Desert Eagle, I feel like it also falls in competitive as well. I feel like with the one-shot ability, the movement speed, and the recent buff to this thing, this is just an incredible option. And the pistols in this game are all really, really good. The Icarus 5.56, the Icarus for me, it's probably just an average LMG. It's a little bit better than the Wrap and the Seiken, just because it's got better recoil and it's got a little bit better of an ADS. And finally, we get to the Bass P, and I think the Bass P is also competitive. Another really good movement SMG. It's got good hip fire, good damage, and a lot of good things going for it, but it just does fall below some of these other options up close, like the Vaznev and like the Kastov and the Chimera as close range options. So there we go. In terms of weapons in meta at the moment, in order, I think the Vaznev by far number 1. I think then for me, the RPK is probably 2. P890s, number 3. I feel like the Kastov probably comes here. Then the STB and the TAC are very similar. And then I might leave the HCR and the SPR. It's hard to rate those against each other. But there you go, guys. I feel like this is a pretty solid list, especially after getting Orion. I know all of these weapons really well. Let me know what you think. Let me know how you're going with the camo grind. Do you agree? Are there weapons that you feel like I've ranked too high, too low? Let me know what you change. Again, thanks so much for watching. Appreciate it. Leave a like and subscribe.